Hi guys, and welcome back to Driving MX-5. I'm super excited to show you this onboard footage. It's special, it was certainly special to me at this track day. First of all because we are on a very unique track. It's called Bilster Berg. It's in the middle of Germany. If you own an MX-5, I certainly recommend to visit this track. You're going to have a blast. The second point, I'm driving an MX-5 Miata ND2, the facelift version. Big shout out, thank you to my racing buddy Grzegorz, aka Latarowski, for having me to drive his car. And the third thing is, I'm chasing down the line those fancy Alpines A110, and actually being able to keep at least with one of them. So that's actually quite an exciting outcome. As we are doing this warm-up lap, I'm going to talk about actually how this came to be and about the venue. On the second lap, I'm going to focus on a track layout. It's called Mini Nürburgring, not without a reason. The third lap is going to be my fastest personal best of the day. So we're going to focus on how it could be potentially even faster. And on the fourth and fifth lap, I'm going to go through the ND2 specifications and how does it compare to the NB, which I'm mostly used to driving. So let's get to it. It is my last session of the day, and this is a track day organized by Track Masters. Highly recommend if you can attend. They are organizing events across Central Europe. And as you can see, I'm chasing those Alpines, and we are positioned at every session according to our best lap times from the previous sessions. So as you can see, the brown and the green Alpine already vanishing in preparation for their first fast laps, but I'm still quite close behind this blue Alpine, which we are going to have a very nice chase. Approaching the final corner. So just very quickly, it's my first outing on this track, but I've already passed a few sessions, so I'm already able to push the car a bit more. And hitting the apex of the last left corner, down on the start-finish line, this blue Alpine already disappearing. It is a huge power disadvantage to the MX-5, but we are going to be able to keep in the corners. Start of the first lap, first hard braking to the right, quite tricky, slow corner, one of the slowest on the track. It's a bit slippery going through the curbs, and then coming slowly to the mid-speed chicane. It's actually quite interesting, a bit slippery, a bit tricky. Then coming to the next section where we have again pretty hard braking and middle speed right corner, followed by some interesting undulations, so you can already see how much elevation change this track does have. There's a lot of blind corners on it. You have to memorize it before actually going fast. Very interesting depression here on this left one, and then we are coming to one of the most interesting features of the track. This is called Mousetrap corner, Mausfalle, and it features actually a over 20 meter elevation drop, and then back up, totally blind corner. However, this car, it's totally flat out. And coming to the next set of S's, again very interesting, requiring hard braking, left, right, left S's with very big high curbs and a lot of space going out of the curbs. If you want, you can catch a slide there. Going down straight, it's the fastest straight, approaching 190 km/h, to a super interesting corner, which requires a lot of grip. If you don't have the grip like I did actually on those AR1s, you're losing a lot of time sliding around. Coming again to uphill S's, this is where I gained the most time on this Alpine, as you can see. Back again on its tail, and it's pulling away so fast on the straight that I'm thinking that's actually the stronger 110R version of 290 HP. And now starting the fastest lap of the day. As you can see, quite a bit unsteady on the brake. This is the main complaint I would have about this MX-5. It was really a blast to drive, really tail happy, which probably was not the fastest way, but the biggest complaint was about the brakes. The brake feel was not very progressive. The brake itself was very soft, which made me actually lose quite a lot of time on the first laps of the sessions. A lot of tiny corrections on the wheel, which was actually very easy. Balancing on the edge of the grip, braking early here to not offset the balance of the car. Full acceleration into the Mausfalle. And I've tried many different lines here. Here I'm kind of entering from the middle or closer to the inside and hitting the apex, but I've tried going more from the inside, going more from the outside. It is actually very tricky to get it right. And now approaching very hard braking to the left, right-left S's. You have to actually nail the first braking zone to get the acceleration right of the S's. And on the back straight, trying to gain speed out of those S's as much as possible. Down the straight is the fastest part of the track on ND2, hitting 192 kilometers. And then into this super fast and enjoyable corner. You can see just slight correction on the steering wheel, trying to get as much grip out of those air-1s. And then uphill section, downshift to fourth, flipping the throttle a bit to extract as much speed as possible. Again, the blue Alpine, probably not the strongest in this section. Out on the main straight, good exit, and it seems like it's going to be the fastest time of the day, yes, by 500ths of a second. So it's a 1:59.5 second, which I must say I was actually quite happy with. There's probably few tenths at that day myself behind the wheel that I could extract from this car and these tires. You can see those tiny corrections all the time on the edge of grip, which is a super nice feeling in this ND. So probably a few tenths of a second to gain, but not much. I think having a better tire like the CRS, the new Nankangs, or the well-known Direzza 03G, especially considering the long left corner at the end of the track, but as well those pretty tricky braking zones, it might be possible to get down to 58 or 57 with this car. And let's talk now about the specification of the car itself. So as I mentioned, this is the ND2 facelift version. It is prepared for a Spets class in Miata Challenge. This is a class which is thought to be giving the driver as much pleasure from driving the MX-5, but not throwing a lot of money into it. So there are spec classes for the NAs and Bs together. There's separate one for NC and separate one for ND. This car specifically has 200 horsepower, which is quite a good result, and this is actually quite easy to achieve on the ND2 engine because it's from stock with over 180 HPs. So essentially what you need to do is to have a exhaust manifold, improved inlet manifold, or cold air intake. In this case we have cold air intake and 4-to-1 exhaust manifold. It's allowed to have a reflash of the tune on those engines, which I think has been done as well here to achieve the 200 HPs. On the pre-facelift variant of ND, it's allowed to as well change the camshafts to get up to this power level in this spec class. This car weighs about 1100 kilograms, so it's maybe slightly more heavy than the NB, but just because it's so easy to get those 200 plus horsepower levels, you need to invest a lot of money into 1.8 NB engine, so the BP engine, to get at this power level, cams, pistons, or shaving the head. So significant modifications to get at this power level, and here you just buy an ND and pretty easily, just with a reflash and exhaust inlet change, get up to 10 HP power levels. Then we have the suspension. Obviously it's modified. It's harder at 10 kilograms front and 6 kilograms rear. We have a fat front roll bar, I think 28 millimeters, and a stock rear roll bar. And this is actually quite surprising because this car has a significant tendency to oversteer. So have a look at this corner. Slight throttle flip, and instantly the rear wants to escape. An explanation for it might be that this one is equipped with the OS Geiken limited slip diff. So it might be that it's set up to lock very hard during throttle action when it receives the torque. I don't know, but it definitely made a fun time on the track. However, probably again just only because of this oversteer tendency. And by reducing it, I guess some few tenths would be able to shave off the best time. The car has a standard 6-speed manual transmission. It's actually brand new because the old one, or the broken one, was replaced from this car. Already mentioned the tires, Nankang's AR1. They are sitting on 17-inch wheels, 8-inch rim, which is actually limited by the specification in the Mazda Challenge. Tire size itself is 215, 45 profile, and this car I think could use a bit wider tires, but again they are limited by the specification. And the suspension is set up quite aggressively, 3.5 degree of a camber at the front and 3 degree at the rear. Probably could fine-tune a bit for more stability and less oversteer. But again, these are fine-tuned details, and I think the main culprit is the OS Geiken diff. So let's go now to the biggest complaint that I would have about this car, probably one of the very few, and it's the braking. As I mentioned, it's very difficult to feel the brake. The brake has a spongy feeling. It's not very progressive. You actually cannot appreciate how hard it was to brake in this car, at least for me, jumping from the ND, where I have a pretty hard, nice, progressive pedal feel. And I've heard these complaints from a few owners of ND Miatas, so I guess it's not that unusual. But even more strange so, because this one has actually a modified front brake calipers and disc. So it's running on 305 millimeter 2-part disc with a big brake Brembo kit and Ferrado brake pads. The rear brakes being stock only with Ferrado brake pads. So definitely something to improve, but still, I had a blast driving this car on that day on this track, chasing those Alpines. How does the car compare to the NB? Well, interesting question, because I've driven NAs, NBs, NC and ND, and so far the NCs were the outlier in sense of the driving feel and the steering feel and the heaviness or lightness of the car, NCs being the heaviest of the bunch. The ND is definitely I feel coming back to the roots. So it's lightweight by 1100. It's actually quite comparable to a stock NB. And we have a first overtake of a session. Watch out, somebody's in the gravel. Yes, that's the orange Alpine pushing quite hard. So as you can see, nobody's really saving their cars, pushing to the limits all the time. And believe me, I've been trying and pushing hard all the time. As you can see here, slightly too late braking, too hard on the brakes, and then oversteer, and then losing a lot of time on the exit. Just watch the timer, as I'm losing more and more tenths of a seconds down the straight. So getting back to the comparison, so what I think really transforms the NC and ND, because I've driven the NC equipped with OS Geiken as well, is this differential. I think the differential is the probably weakest part of all the generations, except the NB with Torsen. So my NB is equipped with Torsen, which I'm quite happy with, but the NC and ND, they really transformed by the locking action of those more powerful differentials like OS Geiken. These enable the car to be very progressive when sliding in the turn. you could, I guess, drift them pretty well as well. And they make it very enjoyable during braking, because you feel you have the control over the car, and that tires slip during the braking action, so that makes it actually very effective and stable at the same time. The last bit I didn't talk about is the steering feel. I do not have much complaints about this ND. It allows you to freely correct any slight or bigger mistakes that you do on a track, so it feels, and this is one of the reasons why I still think Miata is the answer. So obviously it gives you a huge joy if you're able to compete with faster, more powerful cars on the track, thanks to the agility of the Miata MX-5. On the other hand, probably if you ask this Alpine driver, or any of these Alpine driver, what is the answer, they would say probably 110 is the answer. So yeah, it depends on where you sit and how much money you have in the pocket. But in the end, it's all about fun, and this is definitely given whichever generation of the MX-5 you choose to. And last but not least, the reliability thing. Just to give you an example, this specific ND has been driven on 2 feet, so to speak, so 2 driver per 1 track day on many track days during the year, without any significant technical issues, except maybe the problem with the gearbox that occurs in NDs. While our beloved NAs and NBs get older, they require more and more maintenance. I've heard too many stories, including mine actually, that cause people trouble and frustration due to technical issues. By the way, if you're here because you want to hear some news about my Stroker 2-liter BP engine build, stay tuned. I might still have something new by the end of the season. That's the end of the session, so I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you liked the helmet cam and commented driving. See you soon.